Hey guys, Geoffrey here, and today I have a very important video for you guys because in this video I'm going to show you the 5 levels of resistance that you need to go through and you need to thrive through before you can expect to reconcile. And in the thousands of clients that we work with every single year, they all go through the same 5 stages. No matter what your starting point is, no matter how dire things are right now, it always goes through the same stages. And it's not until my clients really understand these 5 stages and their need and how to thrive through this that they really begin to see some incredible results in their relationship, regardless again of how dire things are when they first started. So make sure that you stick around to the very end of this video to make sure that you understand these 5 hurdles so you don't make the common mistakes that people usually make when they do eventually inevitably find themselves in these positions. And in case you're new to the channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills and knowledge to be able to design a thriving relationship on your own. So if you want more content on this topic, then be sure to subscribe to this channel and also click that bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And before I begin this video, I also want to let you know that the masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want to join the masterclass or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival Program, then be sure to stick around to the very end of this video as well for the announcement on how you can join both those things. So when we talk about this resistance in relationships, we often call it in our program the paradox of change. And so before we understand the key points here, let's understand what the paradox of change is and what it means as well. So understand that, when your partner wants a divorce or they want a separation here, they're usually at a spot where things are very, very hopeless in their mind. And it's hopeless because they find themselves in a position where they have expressed their unhappiness or their gripes with the relationship for so long. And here you've probably made a lot of promises and said a lot of very charismatic words that things will be better, promising that things will change, that you are going to change, etc. But every time you make these promises, she ends up getting burned because you cannot meet those promises. And often not because you are trying to not meet those promises, but often because we don't know how to. So here your partner has been in this cycle of expressing her unhappiness to you, you making promises, her trusting you, getting disappointed, expressing the unhappiness again, you promising, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so it's almost like this case of fool me once, shame on you, fool me 50 times, shame on me. And so now you might be in a position where you are trying to change and you're actually maybe changing for real this time and you're changing the way you talk, the way you think, the way you operate in a relationship, but your partner still doesn't believe you. And she, in fact, the more changes you show, the more she resists. And we have to understand why this needs to happen. Because again, your partner needs to be very, very sure here that your changes are indeed real, that she's trusted you so many times. And she's heard a lot of the same things. She's heard a lot of the same changes. But those changes never ever stick. And now she doesn't want to get burned by those changes, by those thoughts of trusting you again. So the paradox of change, just to make it simple for you guys, is when you try to change, you will notice that your partner's resistance to your changes actually goes up. That she gets more suspicious, more doubtful of your changes the more you change. And again, due to the nature of what it means to be in a place where you're almost divorced and why she's at that spot, this paradox of change will always be there in every journey, which is why I say no situation is really unique. Now, once we understand this paradox of change, we can start to understand too that it doesn't just come in one form. It actually comes in 5 different stages of different kinds of resistance that comes up every single point. And so the first stage is really the resistance to even seeing your changes whatsoever. So this is a position when you might find your partner, again, whenever you try to change and you showcase those changes, she becomes a lot more suspicious, a lot more doubtful of it. And she will tell you things like, don't even bother to change. I don't want you to change. Don't even waste your time and money on changing. Don't even bother because I'm not coming back. There's no chance, 0 chance whatsoever. So this is the resistance to tell you basically, you shouldn't change. And we'll show you why your partner has this resistance a bit later. But that's the first stage. The second stage of resistance is when there's a resistance to feeling emotional safety. So for those of you who have been following me for a while, you'll know that emotional safety is really about your partner's ability to be able to express the deepest and darkest thoughts without hesitation. And so usually what happens is when there's a resistance to emotional safety here, your partner tends to make a lot of assumptions about you, about how you would react. And in essence, she's making herself more and more angry towards you. So nothing new happens, no new event happens. She could be sitting on a couch and you could be giving her a lot of space. But she's using her knowledge from the past you, your previous you, of how you would do things in the past, and extrapolating that and making these confirmation biases and interpretations about how you would react if she were to express herself to you. So if you're facing resistance in this stage, what you'll find is that nothing new happened, but your partner is somehow getting angry and angry and angry by herself. That's the resistance to emotional safety, where drama comes out of nowhere. The third stage is really what we call the resistance to psychological safety. So while emotional safety is about your ability to express, psychological safety is about your ability to listen, or in this case, your partner's ability to listen. And if you are in the stage, if you're facing resistance here, then you're going to find yourself in a position where anytime you try to talk about your intentions, that, for example, you realize that, oh, my partner really misunderstood my intentions of why I said this, of what I said here. And you try to explain your intentions, she's very reluctant to trust you on that, to believe you on that, to trust, to listen to your advice, to your intentions, to what you're going to say. The fourth resistance is really resistance to feeling admiration. And this is when you find that your partner has been really conditioned to assume the worst things about you. And they're not doing this out of malice or out of on purpose. They're just doing it as a self-preservation because they've been burned so many times in the past. And of course, the final one is resistance to goal alignment. This is really the highest level of resistance. So we won't go too deeply into this because a lot of you who are on the brink of a divorce may not be facing this right now. But again, you have this 5 stages of resistance, and we call it stages because it really comes linearly like that. So once you thrive over this resistance for your partner to even see your changes, usually you'll face the second stage, which is when you will get the resistance to emotional safety. And once you fix that, you get the second resistance and so on. So basically, when you look at the reconciliation process, it's not like a linear process. It's almost like an up and down process where you fight through this stage of resistance, and that creates another new resistance, and things seem to be going worse for a while, but then you create the second level, and so on and so on. It goes down before it goes up first. So the paradox of change here basically doesn't happen just once. It happens many times throughout that reconciliation process. And if you look at a lot of my client stories and their journeys into their reconciliation process, you'll find that they all go through the same journey as well. And I'm sure when you start to take on this journey, you will start to see that your journey mirrors this very, very closely as well. The paradox of change also can come in different forms. So there's usually 3 main forms that the paradox of change can come in. So of course, the first one is what we call active resistance. And active resistance is when your partner simply is showing actively her resistance and telling you and resisting you very actively, as the name suggests. So this can come in the form of like gaslighting, very intense anger, intense emotions, etc. The second form of resistance is what we call the passive resistance. This is when your partner can give you the cold shoulder, the stonewalling, the long periods of ignoring you, not talking to you, not wanting to have any conversations with you. But there's a third kind of resistance that often comes in towards the stages 2, 3, or 4, which is what we call the friendly resistance. And this is when actually your partner comes closer to you, as your partner might sometimes come closer to you because they really want to see what are you really made of. Once I come closer to you, will you stick with your changes, or will your changes kind of go away? If you can stick with your changes even after she comes back to you, then that's when she knows, okay, I can trust this, and I can trust the next stage here. But if you go back to your old self, you get complacent, for example, because you haven't made this a lifestyle, then that's when you have failed the test in a way. Showing her that, you know what, I told you, the reason why I had trust issues in the first place is because I don't know if these changes will be permanent, for real, for life. And once I come back, he stops, that just proves me right. So again, we have to go back to this notion of why does the paradox of change need to happen? Why does your partner need to resist you in order for her to trust you? So again, remember that your partner here has been burned so many times throughout the relationship, many, many times. And so she needs very solid and compelling evidence now, not only logically, but emotionally, that your changes are indeed real, they're permanent, they're genuine, and they're not going to be conditional on anything. That when you say you're changing no matter what, and you actually mean that. Now, the problem though is that your partner also subconsciously knows, and they might not consciously know this, but they subconsciously know that it's easy for anyone to do the right things when things are easy, when there's no curveballs, when there's a lot of hope, for example. It's very easy to fake your changes. But it's really hard to fake your changes when things are hard, when things are hopeless. So for example, it's very easy for someone to feel very motivated to want to change themselves if their partner tells them, for example, oh, yeah, if you change, then I will come back. It's very easy for someone to be keeping their emotions in check when things are easy, when there's no really big conflicts thrown at you. It's really easy to say the right things when there's no curveballs thrown at you, but it's really hard to still say the right things, to still maintain your emotions, to still keep motivated when all that hope, that positivity is taken away from your journey. And so the only way your partner will know whether your changes are real or not is really by seeing how you act during moments that are hopeless, during moments that are most difficult. So we always say in our program or in our videos too, it's not about the 99 things you do right, but about the one thing you do wrong. Let's change that a bit. It's not about the 99 things you do right when things are easy, but it's the one thing you do right when it's hard that really counts. And understand that your partner is not really doing this in a very cunning or in a very conscious way. It's not like she has a checklist in front of her and going like, okay, let me test him on this and see if he passes. But this really comes as an introspection from your partner's part after the fact. So your partner is still going to act out of emotion, out of what feels right for her. And sometimes what feels right for her in this case is to act in a very difficult way, to resist you very hard. And let's say that you don't deal with this resistance very well. Well, your partner will then take maybe the next few days or the next week to really think about what you did and go, oh, did what my partner did really confirm my confirmation bias or no? Did this show me that I can trust him or no? But if you can do it right, she's going to do the same introspection and think, oh, interesting, he did that. That was not what I was expecting. Interesting. And so that slowly starts to change her confirmation bias about you very slowly. But again, the key point is that it's not about the 99 things you do right when things are easy, but about the one thing you do right when things are really, really hard, when things are really, really hopeless. And this is the same case when you're getting friendly resistance too. Your partner wants to know, okay, if I come back to him, how does he act? Now, when she comes back to you, she's not thinking, oh, I wonder what he will do. She's not doing that. She's just following her heart to do what she wants to do. But depending on what you do, she might then reflect on that and go, oh, was this a mistake or was this the right decision? And a lot of you too might be wondering, and a lot of my clients wonder this too. Well, Jeff, why can't my partner at least make it somewhat easier for me? You know, why does she have to tell me all the time that there is no hope, that don't bother to change, she was never coming back? Well, let's think philosophically about this. Let's say that your partner tells you that there is hope, that if you change, she'll come back, that there is a big chance that she'll come back. All you need to do is change. Well, if she says that, and eventually she sees your changes over the next month, 2 months, how would she know that your changes are indeed because it's real, it's genuine, you're changing because you are, it's a permanent thing, or you're changing because of some conditions? Because you have the hope, for example, that they will reconcile, that you will reconcile, that you have the hope of things coming back together, because things are easy to change, the conditions are easy for you to change. Your partner will never really know this. So again, we have to understand that your partner now needs to really, really trust your changes. And she needs to create the conditions in which it gives her the answers to be able to trust your changes. But if she makes it easy for you, then it's not going to happen. And so if you look at a lot of my client stories too, there's a reason why they all start off in the same position where their partner's telling them there's no hope. There can't be any hope. Don't even bother trying. Oh, you bought this stupid program. How dare you? We all have heard the same narratives before. But this is just the petals of change. And the point here is that when you're going through this petals of change, you have to learn how to thrive and not just survive. And you cannot crumble during these moments as well. So there's really 3 ways that we can approach this. 3 categories that I see that people approach this. The first, the worst part, is when you crumble, when you're facing through this. You know, it makes me really sad when people say, for example, on day 1, hey, Jeff, I really want to work on myself. I really do. I really, really do. I'd do anything to work on myself. And then the next day, their partner tells them, hey, there's no hope. Don't even bother trying. Don't even start. I'm never coming back to you. And on day 3, they lose all their motivation. They just crumble and lose all motivation. And they say to themselves, oh, what's the point of even changing if it's not going to lead to anywhere? It's too late now. But what they don't understand is that that was the test. The test was, what will you do when things get hard? What will you do when the hope is taken away from you? And if you crumble during these moments, you have just shown to your partner that she's right to not trust you, that your changes were never real. They can't be real. They're very conditional. You didn't have any good reasons behind your changes, etc. Right? So see the irony here, that the moments when things are most hopeless are the moments when you need to thrive the most. You cannot crumble with that. And this can manifest itself in different ways throughout the 5 stages as well. So for example, if your partner is resisting to feel emotional safety with you or psychological safety with you, she might stonewall you. She might gaslight you. And if you're not able to thrive under that gaslighting or stonewalling, and you crumble with that, and you don't know how to interpret that properly, you see that as a threat, you see that as, you blame your partner's character, for example, when she does that, then that shows to your partner that, hey, you know what? I was right. This guy doesn't really understand what his new self should be. This guy doesn't really understand what I feel. This guy doesn't really have good reasons behind his changes. That once the conditions are taken away from him, he'll go back to his old self. He's just applying some tactics here and there to try to get me back. And the second category is what we call the surviving. And there's two kinds of ways people survive usually. So one is that, you may have heard some of my videos talking about this resistance, and you might be using a lot of your willpower to fight through this resistance, to try to keep it together during this resistance. But the problem again is that when you're just trying to simply survive by keeping it together like this, you will show in your micro expressions, your microtones, that you're not really enjoying this process. If let's say your partner resists you and you feel angry deep down, but you're trying so hard not to show it. Well, the words you say may be okay, but she can sense in the way your eyes move, in the micro expressions, the microtones in your subtle body language, that you're not really enjoying this process. And if she can sense that you're not really enjoying this process, then in the back of her head, she will know these changes can never be forever. How can it be forever if you don't actually enjoy being your new self, becoming your new self? It doesn't make sense. And if you use willpower too, what happens too is that usually you can take it for a certain amount of time, but you can't take it after some time. You just will crumble after some time. And what builds trust is really this consistency over time as well. Can you become your new self for long periods of time? It's almost like I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about how their philosophies to hiring. And they said that they don't give anyone raises until the first 6 months of working in a company. Because anyone can put on a show for 3 months, for example, but it's really hard for someone to put on a show for 6 months straight. And for that 6 months, they're really trying to see how consistent are they. And your partner's doing the same. Your partner's thinking, okay, he's changed so many times before, but it's never lasting. So I want to see now long-term changes. And if you're just using your willpower and just surviving, you can't stand the test of time here. And the second way that this surviving approach kind of plays out usually is when you're doing some things right, but you're doing some things wrong. And here's what I mean. So understand that behind every performance, behind even a 15-second conversation, a 5-minute conversation, there are a lot of things that you need to get right. There's a lot of internal shifts you need to get right. There's a lot of words that you need to choose, the micro expressions you need to have, and all these needs to come together to form that performance. And this applies to any kind of performance you can think of. You can think of basketball players behind a 5-second drive to the basket, dribbling left and right, are many, many layers of skills coming together at that particular point in time. Maybe hundreds of skills coming together. The same way behind a quick conversation even, there's hundreds of skills that needs to come together. Now the problem is that a lot of people, they take the approach of learning tactics to try to get a couple of things right. But you can't just get a couple of things right. And the best analogy I can give here too is, imagine what it takes to keep your body alive for maybe just even 5 minutes. There's so many functions that are automated with your body. Now imagine if those processes suddenly become unautomated, and now you have to get everything right, consciously get everything right. This is what happens when we try to change in our relationship, right? We have to get so many things right, and we need to change so many things. So we're basically unprogramming all the previous programming that we have, and we're trying to reprogram it with something else. But if you don't program that behavior, then what you're doing basically is, imagine going back to the body again, imagine trying to consciously use tactics to keep your heart beating, to keep your lungs breathing, to keep your neural synapses going, to keep your thyroid going, and all these glands going. Imagine doing that all at the same time, focusing on 100 processes at the same time. That's impossible. You might be able to focus on 2 or 3 at the same time and get those 2 or 3 right, but you can't get the hundreds right. The same way if you look at the basketball player too, you can get the dribbling right, but it's not just about dribbling here. You need to dribble, you need to drive, you need to think in a different way, you need to do all these complex motions all in a combination to get to where you want to go. So this is the problem, I think, with people who are learning tactics, is that they often get the 2 tactics they want to focus on, and they get the 2 tactics right, but they don't understand is that they have just gotten hundreds of things wrong on the background that often they don't even know they're getting wrong, and that's not going to lead to any results. Now the third category and where we want is what we call the thriving. And if you look at any performers in any field, the best performers are the ones who are not just surviving, but they're thriving. In the sense that it's not until things become very tough, when they get the most resistance, for example, that they become the best. Right? When they're under pressure, they become the best. So while the surviving is really when things are harder, you can keep your stuff together and you're holding on for dear life. The thriving mindset is really the worse things get, the more I rise. And if you look at a lot of my client stories, they've really learned the mindsets to be able to thrive in this way, that the worse resistance they get, the more they turn it from negative into positive, not only internally, but also externally as well. And this is also the place when you've really programmed all these different changes into your life so that you would not just getting things right, but you also reach this point where you can't get things wrong. So the saying we have in the program is practice not till you get things right, but practice till you can't get things wrong. This is when now, just like the performer, the basketball player, for example, you are doing these complex maneuvers without even thinking. You're doing the right things in a conversation without even thinking. You're showing the right micros without even thinking anymore. That's just a part of you. That's a thriving mindset. That's where you want to be. Because these resistances not only come in many, many forms, and you're always, everything is a test. Everything is a resistance right now. And it's impossible to always consciously think about this resistance you're getting and consciously try to respond well in that moment. It needs to come naturally at some point. Now, the last question that we need to investigate then is, well, how do you thrive then? So this is a topic that goes beyond this video because in our program, we really have close to 100 hours of content teaching you not only how to thrive internally, but also externally as well. But if you look at the way the program is structured, and if you join the masterclass, you will know this. We talk very deeply about, first, the stages of untethering first. Then after we talk about untethering, we talk about building the bulletproof vest. Then we talk about the different paradigm shifts that you need to have to really think about resistance in a different way and to allow you to thrive. We show you a concept called antithetic thinking and expanding your band of operation. We talk about being in the state of consciousness and being more mindful of what you do. And we talk about building your self-esteem as well and building this deep, noble conviction and deep, noble intention that you need to have as well. So those are all the internal shifts that all come together to form, to allow you to thrive internally during tough moments, during this path of change. And even if one of these pieces are missing, so let's say you struggle to be untethered. So meaning that your motivation, your mood is dependent upon what's happening with your relationship. Then whenever you get pairs of change, then you will crumble along with that. Same thing for bulletproof vest. When you get stonewalling, for example, when you get resistance and you don't understand the right paradigms in which you think through those resistance to interpret those resistances, then you're in trouble as well. Same thing for having your self-esteem. If your partner says something that really hurts your identity and you have low self-esteem, you're not going to be able to thrive through that. That's going to be very tough for you. So all these internal shifts need to come together. But also the internal shifts, while they're necessary, they're not sufficient. They need to be also coupled with the external shifts, which is the frameworks or the guidelines in which you speak, you interact with your partner. These two need to come together to form this cohesive whole for you to be able to thrive under resistance as well. And of course, like we said, we also need to program these things into your life, these different layers of internal shifts and external shifts, so that this is now how you think, how you are. And regardless of what test you're going through, is using the same skills, right? All these layers that we talk about, no matter what stage of resistance you're getting, of pairs of change you're getting, it's the same remedies, it's the same skills. The same way, it doesn't matter what kind of game you're playing. The same skills behind a basketball player, still the same. Use the same set of skills to maneuver yourself through infinite different situations. So guys, again, this is way too much for one video to talk about. And it's hard for these YouTube videos to get very deep sometimes because I cannot really build one principle on top of another through a YouTube video because people don't see it linearly like that. So if you want to learn more about these processes, I would encourage you to watch my in-depth interviews. There, obviously we're having conversations with my clients who know the program very well, and when the conversation can get very deep and very systematic into how all these layers come together to talk about, for example, how these patterns of change is coming up in the relationship, how the different layers are coming together to allow them to fight through and thrive through these patterns of changes. And if you want to understand the system a bit deeper on the different layers of internal and external skills for you to be able to thrive under these different layers of resistance, you can also join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I show you the exact steps and process that all my clients have used to get them from a dire situation, from ground zero to breaking through all 5 stages of patterns of change. So if you want to join that masterclass, Or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, then click the link above my head right now to join that masterclass. At the end of the masterclass, we'll talk about the steps that you can take to apply for the program as well. And if you're looking for a guide, just as a sneak preview into what these external shifts, these frameworks look like, one of them, one of the 7 that we have that allows you to thrive in any conversation or any interaction, then you can check out the link above my head as well down below this video. And finally, if you found this video helpful, guys, give it a like. It really helps the channel out and spread the word to more people. And feel free to subscribe to this channel as well for more content like this one. And in the meantime, if you have more questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. For now, I will leave you with 2 other videos with more skills and knowledge to be able to design a thriving relationship for yourself. But with that, I'll see you in the next video.